And we're joined today on It's Art, Let's Talk About It by our good friend Carol Arnold. And Carol, thanks for joining me in the studio to talk about art today.
I appreciate you asking me,
Yeah,
Darrell.
it's going to be a lot of fun. It's really funny. I say this to all the artists just about because it's really become such a trend, is that I talk to artists all the time about art, dinner, lunches, and they love talking about art. But for some reason, you get them in a microphone, put set of headsets on them, and they begin to freak out. It's
Guilty.
It's only a couple of thousand people going to be listening to this.
Just changes things,
It
changes the
does,
game.
but technology. And the bottom line is this podcast is called It's Art. Let's talk about it. And so let's talk about art. Let's talk about your art. Let's talk
Okay.
about the art world in general, the Museum of Western Art. And we're happy to have you on the podcast. So let's start by, first of all, talking about your art, what kind of art you do, how you would classify your art. It's mostly landscapes, florals, that kind of thing. And you do pastels, right?
I do. I consider myself a pastelist. I dabbled in oils for a little bit, but I had random people say your pastels are just and so I thought, okay, why am I going to spend time doing oils? So I just went to pastels, and I like them because when I paint, it's an emotional thing for me. So I like to begin, I like to finish. I can't sit and let a part of it dry and then come back to it later. I really like to get the majority done within the days that I begin a painting. So pastels just really agreed with the way I work, the way my brain works, my mind. And for me, pastels and my artwork's a lot of emotion. I just gravitated toward pastel.
What's your favorite subject?
I really like clouds. Honestly, I like clouds. I like landscape. West Texas, I have family roots with West Texas, and it's dear to my heart and speaks to me. I like wildlife, but I do dog portraits for people. I do flowers. I basically God's nature. I really can pick any subject and to do a little bit of everything because it keeps it interesting to change
You
up.
paint big, small?
With pastels, I'd say my favorite size would be anywhere from 11 by 14 to 24 by 36. Larger, smaller. Smaller is fine, but funny enough, it's harder to paint smaller than it is larger. And
I hear that a lot from pastel artists that
yeah,
they can go big. And I think that's mostly due to the nature of the material that
it
you know,
could be. And
the chalks that you're using, things that you're using are just, they're bigger medium.
to go larger, I just did a couple of 24 by 36 paintings for the Peterson Hospital new building. And I've done 37 by 48, but when you get that big with pastel, it's just harder to transport and harder to deal
How'd you
with.
get started in art?
All my life, I have drawn, and that was an outlet for me. If I sat by myself or I was feeling sad or happy or whatever, I would just pick a pencil up and I would doodle, I'd draw. And as I got older, I wanted to learn a little more. College, I took some watercolor classes. I actually was a petroleum land management major in college on the business end, and I took art. But there was no one in my family really encouraging the art side of life, so I went with the PLM degree. But when I came to the Hill Country, and long story short, I analyzed my life and I thought, what am I not doing that God really had on my heart to do? And it was to create and actually become an artist.
One of the reasons I ask, and I tell this a lot in our podcast, is it runs a gamut. My friend Jack Sorensen said he used to draw on his mother's walls, and he's been doing it since he was 3. It's all he ever wanted to do was an artist. It's all he's ever done.
Mhm.
And yet people like Rachel Brownlee, who's been on the podcast, she just started in her late 20s, only been drawing 3 years at this point, painting 3 years. And it was never,
My first victory in art was in second grade. I was at a friend's slumber party, and the mother had a little art contest, and I drew a little girl with the flowers in her hand standing in front of her little square house, and I wanted one of those little turtles. We used to have turtles as pets, and
Yeah.
I wanted a turtle, and I thought this was really pretty cool. And so that's all the encouragement I needed was to
Just
win
win a turtle.
turtle at a slumber party, and I thought, okay, I could do this.
But you had another career.
Yeah, you talk about petroleum.
Yeah.
Yes, I was a oil and gas landman for a few years. I also had real estate brokers. Before I had children, I worked full time. And after the second child, I couldn't work and take care of kids at the same time. So I quit that and took care of my children. And at that time, I couldn't paint, I couldn't draw, I couldn't do anything because I was just focused on their life. And as every mother listening knows, you're running the whole time. And as they got older and we moved to Kerrville and they were in high school, junior high, got a little older, I'd find at 9 o'clock at night when they would go to sleep, I would use that time to paint. And so I would just get the pastels out. And another thing about pastel, I could pick it up, put it down. I didn't have to worry about drying or drying out or what was I doing before because it was there waiting for me. And I could carry on my life with my family, come back to it and see what I created.
No
And
brushes to clean, no turpentine to mess with.
no smells,
No
none of
smells,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really people say, "How about all that dust?" And yeah, you do get a lot of dust, but you can clean dust up pretty easily whenever you're ready to get it clean. And that was really the beginning. And I didn't the other factor for every artist, and I'm saying every artist, even the best artist you've ever talked to, is there's that doubt. Am I good enough or am I a fraud? Is my art as good as someone else or is it still matching up? And
Yes.
I had to conquer those fears and those doubts and that insecurity of showing anybody. And so years ago, I showed someone and they wanted to buy something. I thought that was cool. And then someone else, and then someone that had a store in Salado picked up some work for that. And that just began that I thought, okay, I can show people this. And as it grew over the years, I realized I'm not painting for anyone else. I'm painting for me. So I let go of worrying about if this is going to sell and thought more about how do I feel about creating and getting better at my craft.
How long was it between the time you picked up the pastels at 9 o'clock at night after the kids went to bed before you considered yourself a qualified artist?
It was still some time because I do local shows and I would sell, but I felt like I had a lot to learn. I took many years of classes with different artists from all over the country, in oil as well as pastel to learn, and I'm still learning. I'm
Yeah.
still growing, but I just think in the last 10 years, 15 years, I feel as confident as I need to feel as
Do you
far as that
remember
goes.
those first early classes? Who were they taught by?
Stephen Napper,
Okay.
who was a local
Sure.
pastelist, and Kathleen Cook, another local, that two wonderful people has passed away. And Kathleen is still here and is an amazing portrait artist, among other things, and took from Albert Handel, who's like the father of pastels, and Kim Lordier, and just many people, many people. And impressionists, tonalists I've taken from Dennis Sheehan and Charlie Hunter, and who are two oil.
You think that's important? For that young artist out there saying, "What can I take away from listening to Carol Arnold talk about her art?" Was that you took a lot of classes?
I do. I think that's utmost of importance. And I also think when you take these classes, it's not to go in there and try. I teach classes now, and I think everyone has their own style. And you go into these classes and you have those, especially Albert Handel, that people treasure everything he says and does. And you have people that go in there and they're just copying everything he's doing. And to me, you go in these classes to pick up another tool for your tool belt of how you paint to add to your toolkit on a new part of your craft that you haven't tried before. They're different. Some artists will do an underpainting with alcohol wash in pastel, and some might use mineral spirits, and some blur, and some use acrylics. And there's just so many types of ways to paint. And in oil, you can paint wet on wet or glaze. There's so many types, and each artist has their own tools that they use. And so every class I've ever taken, from an oil painter or a pastelist to whatever, I've learned something new to add to the way I paint. I'm not trying to copy. I'm trying to develop what speaks to me and what I want to share with what I'm seeing in my vision.
We're joined today by our good friend Carol Arnold on It's Art. Let's talk about it. And Carol, let's talk about your studio. Let's talk about your upstairs studio there at your house here in Carterville.
Yes.
I've been there. Great views of the Texas Hill Country, and you've always got something on the easel.
Yes, I don't know if people that are not in the art world realize how art is a real discipline.
So, yeah, let's talk about your day, though. I
Yeah.
mean, and it varies. I've talked to artists who, boy, they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, hit it till noon, take a break, and then hit it till 5, and then they're done. And other artists who wait around until the muse strikes, and sometimes at 2 in the morning, and it lasts 3 days, and then it's done. What's your typical
Yeah,
art?
everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody's different.
I cannot, as a rule, walk upstairs to my studio unless I've done all my quote chores for the family
the
or the
house.
day, because once I walk up there, time is not important, and I will start something and then I'll realize I've been up there for 5 or 6 hours, and so I can't do that until I have nothing else that I have to get done for that day. And I try to, depending on if I have a actual painting that I'm trying to get out, then I might go in there early in the morning and just block in several days.
How many paintings do you have going at once?
I have one painting going at once, but I have several paintings around me that I might look at and go back to. And when I'm doing this one painting, I might look over and I see this that I'm doing here, this technique, these colors together would do. I feel that on that painting on the wall, and I will bring that over and I will fool with it a little bit. But as I said, I'm a one painter, I have to start and I have to finish. I don't like having 2 or 3 things, big things going at once. So
It's interesting
just
because
my
I
way.
talk to artists all the time, and Jason Skull comes to mind. His studio, he's got 25 works. He's got maquettes going, oversized works he needs to finish. And I walk into his studio, what you working on today? Because it's, I'm back to this horse. Because he can't stay focused on that one thing all the way through to completion. And yet it sounds like that's what you pretty much have to do.
That's just how my brain works. It's locks on something and it just stays on it until I get it to a point. Now, that's not to say that I don't have paintings that are sitting around that I have not totally completed, because I have 1 or 2 paintings. I think these are really great paintings, but I'm not going to frame them yet because there's something missing I haven't put in. And so I will set them aside and I'll wait till something strikes me and I realize what it needed I did not add. But it's different than, say, an oil painting where you have to, I'm doing this layer and I'm coming back and doing the second or third layer. I try to get the main gist of the painting done before I begin another one.
A lot of people, and we talk about this often on this show, a lot of people, when they're listening to the podcast, want to play along, if you will. They want to go out to the website and look at the works of the artist. How do they do that?
My main way of broadcasting my work is on Instagram.
Instagram, okay.
I like Instagram, and it's C. Arnold Fine Art, all together, hashtag C. Arnold Fine Art. There's a different artist, Carol Arnold, that lives in Boston, and she got all the Carol Arnold websites before I got them, so I have to be C. Arnold, and my website is www.carnoldfineart.com.
carnoldfineart.com.
Yes, and that's how I sign my paintings too, C. Arnold, as opposed to Carol, writing Carol.
And then we'll post a bunch of photos of your work we've had in the past at our shows, and then works that we've gotten from you on our website. As people are finding our website, podcast website, they can click on it. And while they listen to this, look at your works.
That's great.
Explains it. I think that's always fun to play along with it. So one of the things I've noticed about your work in the 5 years that we've been friends and I've known you as a professional artist is that you do tend to do a lot of West Texas. You do a lot of Big Bend.
I do.
Favorite place and why?
I love the open.
Tough environment, though.
It is, but I love it. I love the tough environment. I love the toughness of the people and the character and the soul of West Texas at Big Bend. We go out there standing reservations twice a year to hike and occasionally camp or whatever in Big Bend. And we love going to Marathon. I work at the Gage Gallery in Marathon, Texas at the Gage Hotel. And I take a lot of photographs. People think the painting doesn't start when I pull the paper out. The painting started when I'm out somewhere seeing the landscape, seeing the quail, and then I have to photograph to bring things back to the studio if I'm not going to be painting on site. And so I just love going out there because every trip we've taken, there's always something new I find or see And it just connects. Everybody has some place that they connect with. And for me, and luckily my roadie, my husband, Bill, he drives me around and sits out in the cold morning dawn in his chair in the middle of some road in the middle of nowhere while I'm taking pictures. That he loves it too. So we're a good team out in West Texas.
Do you plein air paint?
I do, and it's a little addicting. I like plein air. I'm a fair weather plein air person. When it's cold, I don't like it. And my hat goes off to plein air artists because they're a whole different breed and they're pretty amazing. But you learn so much from plein air, and talking to any artist out there. I used to hear this, and I thought I can take good pictures, but you just cannot capture what you can capture when you paint from a live scene. And I always paint small when I do that, and I keep a lot of those pieces for reference, but I learn from those as well because the colors are different. The photographs make things darker and skew things, and from live plein air painting, you can just capture and get a feel that you can bring back to the studio with you.
One of the things we mentioned earlier is your love of taking classes, but you've also taught. You've done a couple of workshops here at the Museum of Western Art.
This is my favorite place to teach classes, and I want to do one this spring or this fall sometime, but you have this beautiful world-class museum with amazing artwork from amazing artists and the best volunteers I've ever seen anywhere, run by the best director. And
folks that did not pay her to say this.
But it's a real treat. The artists or the people that come to take the class, we all love it, and they love it. And we can go around and look at the artwork on the walls, and I have them do sketches to understand what I'm trying to teach about values and color and composition. And it's just you can't get that.
We did 7 last year, 7 workshops, and they were all sold out.
Mm-hmm.
We have 5 already on the books, working on 3 or 4 more. And people are encouraged to take our Tuesday newsletter. A newsletter comes out every Tuesday morning that talks about the workshops, it talks about the things we're doing. And then watch our website under the workshops tab. You can see what workshops we have and how to get involved in that. And hopefully we'll get you on board for another workshop. But
I'd like that.
You think workshops are important to new artists? At what level should you start taking workshops? Day one, this is a piece of charcoal, this is a brush, this is a canvas, or, do people need to play around for a while before they?
It depends on what class you're taking. I know they have classes for true beginners, and I try to go from beginner up to late intermediate. Advanced, they probably don't need my class. They're with me, but I think you learn anytime you take a class. I think the hardest thing about a class is getting over feeling like everybody in the class is better than you and judging what everybody's doing, because if you walk around and look at everybody's artwork, it's maybe the same scene we're working on, but it looks all totally different. And it's all about you personally gaining something from a class. And like I said, you're going to gain something from it no matter what. If you're interested, I'm actually a good person for pastels for any beginners because I make it very simple. I make it fun. And again, my whole thing is just conquering that fear of being afraid to start.
For that hobbyist out there who's thinking, I want to start painting, and Carol's got me inspired to do pastels. What do they need to buy? What's your basic pastel kit? And can you get one? Just 101?
I like N.U.P.A.S.T.E.L's it's N.U.P.A.S.T.E.L.
Right.
It's a hard pastel, and it comes in a set of 96. So it's every color you could think of to be for a beginner to have. And I would buy one of those sets.
You remember those crayon boxes as kids?
Yes.
Our
64.
Family,
that was a big one.
That was the big one with the eraser on the back. No.
And you had silver. That was, if you had a silver crayon, that was like the best. But yeah, N.U.P.A.S.T.E.L, and then pastel paper is different from other papers. It's got a grit to it to hold the pastel in the paper so you can layer. And there's a UART, and it's UART paper for pastelists. And they have different grits, much like sandpaper. And I use grit 400, which is a smoother, but has a good enough grit where I can layer 5, 8, 10 colors and not lose the grit in the paper. So that the UART 400 and N.U.P.A.S.T.E.L pastels would be my 2 things that I would pick up.
That's interesting because you don't think about chalk as having something that's layerable.
Well, and I have to tell you also that pastels, there's a difference in chalk
Yeah.
and
That's the reason
pastel.
I threw that out there for you to hit that ball.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I always, every pastels will
I said that in a class one time.
Yes, it's
And
not
so,
chalk.
yeah.
No, chalk is basically calcium carbonate, limestone, with color added to it, and that makes chalk. So if you ever see chalk, I know artists that do sidewalk chalk. It's not sidewalk pastel, it's sidewalk chalk. They can go further with that calcium carbonate in there because they don't have as many minerals in the actual stick itself. Now, pastel is actually the same minerals that are in oil paint, except for it doesn't have oil added. It has a dry binder that holds those minerals together to make a stick of pastel. So when you look at pastel, the colors are true pigment. And that's why people love them so much, because you can get such vibrant, clear, pure colors. And so it's a dry pigment, dry binder, same minerals that are in the oil paints without the oil.
Who are the great pastelists?
Today, I mean, these days, currently, right?
Yeah.
Albert Handel is number one greatest pastelist in my personal opinion. And I love Kim Lortier it's what do you connect with? Who do
Right.
you connect
And the
with?
reason I ask is that we have a lot of people who'll say they listen to this podcast, and an artist will throw out a product, like you just mentioned, the new pastel line, and they write that stuff down. They're taking a class when they're listening to us because they're talking to an artist, and they wouldn't have gotten a chance to visit with that artist. They haven't been introduced to Carol Arnold, for example, and don't know how to pick her brain at lunch and how to do that. There's a few of them out there right now who are writing down what you're saying. And
There's a neat guy, Ralph Porter Arts. I like his, and I find these on Instagram. Once Instagram, you don't control it. You think you control what you're seeing, but they have it all. They have it all fixed to where you click on one thing and all of a sudden you're going to see a lot of that kind of thing. And Porter Arts, that's I think his Instagram name, and he's not from around here, but he does great shadowing in his artwork. And there's a Lana Ballot up north somewhere that does a lot of ocean scenes. So it just depends on what it is you're interested in.
Subject matter really doesn't matter, though, does it?
Frank Gray, for old
Oh,
pastelists,
yeah.
I love his work, and
Right.
I guess I'm drawn because those pretty much the same kind of scenes that I like, and his work's very simple, and he's from yesteryear, and so that would be one. And older, if you can get a book on Frank Gray, that would be a good thing to look at. But Degas they had pastels, Rembrandt. A lot of the old masters used pastels, but their oils were the ones that were famous more so than the pastels that they used for sketching.
Will you always be a pastelist?
I'm dabbling and trying to get back into doing some oils on a very small scale, but I think pastel is my gift. And so I think, yeah, I always will be a pastelist.
Is it subject matter driven? People think about pastels, they think about flower vases and still lifes.
No, I can do anything.
You do some really Western works. I've seen some of your works that are very tough landscapes.
I've gotten some very wonderful compliments. I didn't say it, and maybe they really didn't know anything about art. They compared me to Julian Onderdonk occasionally.
Not bad company.
Or Andrew Wyeth.
Sure.
I recently did a couple paintings that are more of an Edward Hopper looking contemporary type paintings. You could do anything you want to. It's just whatever strikes you. And I tend to not like to stay in a box. I tend to like to paint what triggers something when I see it. And so
let's talk about shows and exhibitions. Of course, you have a standing exhibition offer with the Museum of Western Art Roundup.
I love it. It's exciting.
It's such a great show, and you do such a great job for us. And we've sold a bunch of your work out here over the years. The 41st annual Roundup is coming up, and you'll be a part of that.
I'm ready in April. I'm excited about that.
April 26 and 27. But what other representation can we talk about that? Marathon,
the Gage Hotel. They have some of my black and white photography actually, as well as my paintings. And they recently opened a fine art gallery there at the Gage. And I have artwork in the Gage. All you have to do is ask for me out there, and they all know me. And
they know who you are.
Yeah, I love it. Bill and I kid, it's our second home. In the fall, I'm in the Museum of the Big Ben show, which is called Trappings of Texas, which is a wonderful show in Alpine. and I hope to do some more museum shows. I really am enjoying those.
And we're joined today by our good friend Carol Arnold, a pastelist from Kerrville, Texas, and you can find her work at carolfineart.com. And the Instagram page is the
C. Arnold Fine Art.
C. Arnold Fine Art.
And I'm on Facebook, and I think it's just Carol Arnold on Facebook, and you may have to ask to be my friend, and I'll let you in.
C. Arnold, Facebook.
It's Carol Arnold on Facebook, and the others are C. Arnold Fine Art.
What's next for Carol?
I've got some...
Because even in the 5 years I've known you, your life has changed a little bit. People have come. You raised a large family. The husband has a fabulous career, and I know he's always involved in that as an attorney. But your kids are pretty much, you've moved on to grandchildren now.
Yeah, I have grandchildren finally. It's nice. I can play with them, and then I don't have to be sad when they leave because I just go back upstairs and paint. And so it's do some private classes out of my home. Anybody interested in that, you can always call me about that as well. And I've got a commission right now for a church in Dallas to do a painting of the St. Michael's Church, Episcopal Church, if anyone knows it, to do the big chapel and the main building for special programs for their church. Someone asked me to do a wedding chapel program for a special wedding, and the church enjoyed it, and they contacted me. So that's fun. That's, like I said, I like challenges. And
Do you consider yourself a prolific painter?
Yes,
You do a lot, or are you slow, or what's the deal?
No, I'm pretty fast. I say that, but that doesn't mean I finish the painting. It might take me 4 days, but I'm pretty fast at getting it out there. And like I say, I stay focused until I can let go of it. But yes, if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm putting them out there pretty quickly. I'm doing a program right now. There's an easel called Strata Easel that's does a monthly challenge. You have to post a plein air painting, some sketch, something you've done every day for 31 days.
Wow.
Which is a hard thing to do. So I've got to get home and do something for that. But so every day I put something on there, and the work changes from doing something small because I have other things to do to doing an actual painting for that program. But it's good to paint every day for anyone that's interested in the discipline, to make yourself do something at least half an hour.
Muscle memory.
Every day, yes.
A lot of people talk about muscle memory a lot. And it's a lot of fun to do that. And
Steve Napper taught me about quick sketches, which I love. Yeah. And that's setting a timer 30 minutes, and just that keeps you from doing detail. Most artists are always trying to get a little looser in their work and not paint so tight. And doing a quick sketch helps with that. You can only paint the big objects and not get down to the fine lines in that amount of time. So
our time is up, believe it or not. That's how 30 minutes flies by.
There you go. There's a quick sketch of Carol Arnold.
Quick sketch on a podcast. Our podcast comes out every other Thursday. And so watch for the future podcast. But Carol, we appreciate you taking the time today. And thanks for your support, you and Bill, of the Museum of Western Art, and for what you're doing in the art world. A lot of fun.
We feel very honored to be here, Darrell. We really do. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you joining us today on It's Art. Let's talk about it. Our guest has been Carol Arnold. We hope you enjoy It's Art. Go out to www.museumofwesternart.com for more information, or find us wherever your podcast, Apple Podcast, and we're a member of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. I'll get that right. We appreciate Carol joining us today, and we hope to see you soon on It's Art. Let's talk about it.